He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
I got out of the Army in 2020. In fact, I was still in the IRR when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. And the last few years I was in the Army's official position was we were no longer going to be training for counterinsurgency warfare, and we were going to pivot to training for near-peer warfare. So what does that mean? Counterinsurgency warfare is armed conflict with a group that is not the official army of another country. So you think Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, Al-Shabaab, that is counterinsurgency warfare. Near-peer warfare is fighting a war with a country that has nearly the same military capabilities as the United States. Back in 2018, 2019, 2020, we were still having an argument about whether or not we felt China was a peer military or a near-peer military, but everyone could agree that Russia was like our clearest example of what a near-peer military would look like. So I'm telling you for a fact that back in 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, folks down at the Pentagon were in the mindset that if the United States was ever going to have to go to war in any of our lifetimes, Russia was a good bet for a possible rival in a military conflict. And I know that has to be a big part of the reason why the military-industrial complex in the United States thought it was a good investment to arm the Ukrainians against the Russians. Like, it seems to me just obvious on its face, like self-evident, that there must have been like tons of meetings at the Pentagon where people were saying, yeah, obviously, duh, it's a no-brainer. Give Ukraine tons of weapons, and that way they can spend a couple of years speed-bumping Russian soldiers, blowing up every Russian tank, knocking every one of their fighter pilots out of the sky, killing a bunch of Russian generals. Let the Ukrainians do the dirty work for the Americans. We're seeing the Russians as a near-peer army, but a couple years of the Ukrainians doing the work for us, blowing up the Russian army, like, it's no longer a near-peer military. Russia becomes a sub-peer military. However, things have changed. The problem now is Trump and MAGA are in control, and they don't see Putin as a rival. Trump idolizes Putin. Very famously, back in the 90s, Trump was going broke on all of his casinos until he got involved with the Russian mafia, and he was very proud about that. He used to brag about it, thought it made him all sexy and dangerous and cool. Trump thinks like a mob boss, right? And he sees the United States and Greenland and Panama as like his turf, and he sees Putin like the mob boss of Europe, so Ukraine is his turf, so why are we getting involved in this turf war thing? I don't think it's like one thing. I think there's just a ton of reasons why Trump, MAGA, the GOP would feel more close to Russia than they would to Ukraine. They feel more close to Russia than they feel close to like the United States, like the real United States, the one that actually exists, not the one that exists in their mind. So this whole exchange, this whole shit show, this whole like national embarrassment in the Oval Office the other day, it makes total sense to me. I don't see why Trump would value that relationship with Ukraine or value that support of Ukraine. Like, it doesn't meet Trump's strategic goals or his narrative or his vision of how the world works to see Russia as a rival and Ukraine as a helpful ally or tool or pawn in fighting that rival. He sees Russia as a friend, or at the very least, somebody who I can just admire from afar.